Everyone, my name is Mike McGrath and I'm a business major at the University of South Carolina. And today I'm going to be answering what should the role of business in society be? And I'd like to start off by looking at some of the questions I've been looking at so far, which is how should a corporation act? What should its purpose be? And who should it serve? Should the corporation only be looking at maximizing shareholder wealth, or should it be looking at the interests of all stakeholders? And then the two primarily lines of thinking in this debate is shareholder theory, which is creating wealth for shareholders is the ultimate goal. Of course, shareholders are the owners of the business. And this really cherishes liberty, and that the business is completely free to act in whatever way it wants, ethically or unethically, in maximizing shareholder wealth. And on the flip side, this theory spawns inequality in that it only focuses on maximizing shareholder wealth, so the rest of the stakeholders involved are, of course, going to be left behind. But then stakeholder theory is a little different in that it aims to advance the interest of all stakeholder groups. So as opposed to complete liberty here, the business is tied to taking into account more stakeholders' well-being. So it emphasizes equality in that it's looking at all the stakeholders' well-being as opposed to just the shareholders. And now, where are we today? What's situation do we find ourselves in? Of course, we've got a handful of corporations which dominate society, and these corporations are responsible for shaping tomorrow. They dictate whether or not we're going to have environmentally friendly practices, whether or not what values we're going to cherish, and so on. Also, we know that capitalism creates winners and losers. We know this because our society is highly unequal, where the top 1% own of so much more than the rest. But there's also been a recent shift toward equality in this debate. Stakeholder theory has gained traction, and a lot more businesses have started to emphasize all stakeholders as opposed to just shareholders. And now in my case, I'm arguing that corporations must consider the well-being of all stakeholders. And my thinking is really rooted in that inequality in society is unsustainable. It's definitely helped lead to the highly polarized atmosphere we have today in our society. And it's also created a lot of anger among the people who feel left behind, while the top 1%, 10% are doing so much better than them. But stakeholder theory kind of goes against this and fosters equality and unity in that, as I said, it takes into consideration the well-being of all stakeholders, not just the shareholders who are primarily the wealthy. And I'd like to note too, this isn't a theory about trying to please everyone. Of course, that's impossible to do. Rather, this theory just takes into account everyone's well-being and their point of view, and it makes the best decision it can. So it's a utilitarian approach, and that has the greatest benefit for the greatest amount. And it's just much more conscientious and leads to more progressive decision making. Then, of course, why not shareholder theory? This theory has been rooted in American business culture for the latter half of the 20th century, and it gives business the most liberty. And of course, we cherish liberty. But I'd ask, is primary value on liberty a good thing? Given complete liberty, individuals are going to act in self-interest, and of course, one's self-interest might not be society's best interest. An example I always think of is that environment. It might be cheaper for a business to use dirtier and pollute, but that's of course not best for society, and that's a major problem we have going forward is climate change. So shareholder theory really emphasizes these short-term corporate profits, and that's what's really spawned inequality. And with these tough long-term issues like climate change, systemic racism, and so on, do we really want to be focusing on these short-term issues? Yeah. So what needs to be done and what can individuals do? Of course, requiring corps to report progress on social initiatives is huge. just making sure what they say isn't just window dressing, and make sure they're actually saying what they're doing or doing what they're saying. And of course, more transparency on corporate behavior and actions, requiring them to report on how they treat their employees, how they treat their customers. That would, of course, be great. And then as far as individually, ESG investing has grown tremendously in popularity. This is really investing in ethically sound companies that are acting ethically and being good corporate citizens. And last, I'd like to include by talking about the Business Roundtable, which is a group of 100 CEOs from Amazon, Apple, that are pledging not just to maximize shareholder value, but also take stands on societal and moral issues. So we can see that the business world is really starting to rally around the stakeholder capitalism and take hold of stakeholder theory as opposed to just shareholders. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching my speech.